Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us in another video. Once again, I'm joined by Petr and Tamas. Today, we'll be going over AVD and all things working with CloudVision. This would include our legacy EOS config deploy role in the new standard, which is CV deploy. Petr and Tamas and all of us as well will be going over setting up these new roles, using them, the history of the roles, what has changed, what's in the future, and a few examples that the team has drawn up that really shows the power behind not only the legacy role but also the new CV deploy role, which will be a replacement. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me in another video.
Thank you. Looking forward. Very, very exciting.
Thank you, Julia. I think we will skip the long introduction round. So we have done a few videos before, and probably everyone knows Julio. So everyone knows myself, and definitely everyone knows Tamas, who is
100%,
the
100%.
CloudVision guru. And he is the key person to answer all our questions today. But we will start slow, right? So because one of the quite simple but quite actually common challenges that many are facing in the field, and you can face that like in the production or in the lab, is how to onboard your devices to CloudVision, first of all. Normally, like if you have an existing deployment, you already have all the devices onboarded, and it's basically we can switch directly to discussing CloudVision roles. But you can see my lab environment is empty right now, and I have to onboard the devices from scratch. Now, there is a bit of a difference in what you can do in this situation. So because first of all, you can have a full zero-touch provisioning workflow in place. And in that case, your device will boot, your device will contact actually a DHCP server, get all the parameters, contact CVP, and basically start streaming. Yeah, so this is one way. What I want to show here is a bit more simple. Like you can see, there is actually device registration here. And there is a branch of ways you can use to onboard devices. I mean, seriously, if you have any concerns in how you onboard devices, so just go to this page, check what is actually in there, and you will be your devices will be streaming in no time. So there are again multiple ways to do that. So you can technically just actually enter the device IP address, and if there is API enabled, you can basically ask CVP to configure the device for you. But one of the easiest ways is basically to generate the token, and you can see here. So basically, you can place it in a temporary file. So you click this generate button. Normally you don't need any time longer than 1 day. And then what you have to do, you just follow the instructions. So you put this actually token into the file mentioned above, right? So you configure Terminator accordingly as mentioned here, and you're done. Like this is pretty much standard situation actually when you have a lab. So because for the lab, you normally don't need like the proper ZTP or something like that. You can just stream in right ahead by having pre-generated token, and then basically putting that into the file with the token, and then you simply mount this file to all your COS lab instances, for example. This is essentially what I'm doing in my lab. And it's even more fancy, so because at the end, like you can see, I will not be discussing the lab details under the hood, but if I type lab run, so basically it's everything packaged into like one automated solution. So what happens, basically, I'm starting the containers in the background. I'm actually asking for this onboarding token. I'm mounting this token to my devices. And you can see that in no time, if I go to inventory, so they will basically start streaming. So right now you can see that nothing is streaming. So this will change in basically a few seconds or minutes. So we have to see how fast my lab will be today. As I said, like how I am auto-generating this token. So this is actually a bit interesting, and well, maybe I will give a word to Tamas. Tamas actually can explain how we can auto-generate the token.
Yeah, so we have two API endpoints. Well, depending on the version that you are on. We used to have the old version, the old API endpoint in the CVP service that we don't use anymore. And since Petr is on CVAS, that one uses the state-of-the-art resource APIs. So there's a admin.enrollment resource API that has a service that is called add enrollment token. And within that, you can either specify a list of devices, or you can just specify like all devices with an asterisk, and then the validation, the validity of the token, as you saw on the UI. So you can choose like 1 hour, a day, a week, a month, or more. And basically with that, it will provide you this JWT token, and then you can use that across multiple devices. And we used to have this in CVP Rack. I mean, it's still there, so you could use CVP Rack, and if you were using the old Ansible CVP modules, then those were leveraging this, and AVD has the new API as well.
And thank you, Tamas, for explaining how we request the token. As you can see, the lab devices are streaming right now. So this is just an example of how easily you can onboard your devices to the CloudVision. But what you do with these devices next? Yeah. So as you can see, they're just sitting there. There is no configuration of them, basically nothing. So it just like the very initial configuration. So we would like to provision that. Okay, so first of all, I want to access my lab. And for that, I go and basically I access it, right? And, okay, this is basically a very simple AVD inventory as in my lab. Nothing fancy, yeah? So if you ever worked with AVD, you know, like all the group var stuff and so on. And of course, I have my playbooks. And I have all of them defined right now. I have a build playbook that will generate configs for me. And I have deploy CVP playbook, but this is the legacy role. Yeah, so, and here I want to talk a bit about history first before I even start deploying things. If you think about the history, originally for CVP integration, we were basically relying on the collection which is called Ansible CVP, and underneath there was a Python library called CVP Rack, which was handling all the API requests. It was changing, evolving over time. So, but basically, if you see this Ansible role, most of its functionality is actually from that, from that historical background. And if you check like Ansible underscore Ansible dash Galaxy collection list, you can basically see that, okay, we have Arista CVP installed as a collection. So why we are talking about CV deploy and why we are basically talking about Arista CVP being history? So because in 6.0 release, this will go away. So, and everything we need will be essentially part of AVD. US config deploy CVP role, as well as Arista CVP will be basically decommissioned. We will still support that for a while in the older releases, but in 6.0, so we are planning to support CV deploy only. And it's a great time to start thinking about moving to this new role if you have like an old setup, so where you're still using the legacy one. So start experimenting, see what kind of issues you can hit, because it will change over time. So and it's better to be prepared. Now, also, like just to show, if I do like pip freeze, and you see like grep CVP rack. So this is one of the requirements which is coming with Arista CVP, and you can see that it's installed in like AVD environment. So because of AVD requirements, essentially. Now, so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show that the old role obviously still works. So because you can see that we have version 5.5, so and we still totally support actually the legacy way. Okay, so what I'm going to do next, I will simply build the configurations first, and you can see that yeah, it's pretty standard stuff. So I'm building all the configurations like usual way. So they were just generated here. You can see this is like a normal EVPN network. I will commit it to my repository, telling that it's basically init. And then I can deploy all that. If I do make help, I have a shortcut for my playbook, and I can show you playbook once again so that we are not lost, like playbooks. So this is basically the playbook that I will be executing with shortcut. The shortcut for this is make deploy underscore CVP. So, and it will be running. So what will happen right now, it will kick a change control on the CloudVision. If I go to the provisioning tab, I should be getting actually some tasks here in no time. And I can combine them into the change control and basically execute this change control and deliver the configuration change to the devices.
Yeah, this is already a slight difference that folks will notice between the roles. Like initially, we landed on network provisioning, and then we go to tasks. But behind the scenes, this is incorporating essentially a static configlet per device, adding it to the device, and then initiating the change. Whereas CV deploy actually leverages the studio's workflows to implement changes.
Exactly. So that's a very important comment from Julio. So because basically what I was showing right now is, I hope it's a very well known for everyone workflow where you use classical provisioning UI. So this UI will be basically going away. And I think Tamas may also add a bit of commands on the API side. So because the difference between the legacy workflow and the new workflow is not in the UI itself only. So it's also in how API is implemented.
Well, I would say the biggest difference is scale, because Studios supports at least 5x the scale or more. We just test 5-6 times more than what we used to test with network provisioning. And also we have subscribe APIs with the new workflows, which we couldn't have with the old ones. So you can subscribe to data live and get response. You don't need to do for loops or while loops and sleep and do gets every few seconds and check what's the latest state of something. You can just call one subscribe RPC and you'll get the information you're looking for. And also, it was fairly a bit complicated with the network provisioning, though we try to do a good job with making it very easy for customers to use with CVP Rack and create these abstracted APIs there, these wrapper calls that we had, and then make it even easier with Ansible CVP, where you can just define a few key variables, and there you go. You can push your configurets, create the containers, map the devices to those containers, attach the configurets to those devices, and the images as well, and then create the tasks and add those tasks to the change controls. With Studios, it's a bit more simpler, though initially it might feel like there's a steep learning curve. But we've been trying to simplify these workflows, and we are using Workspaces, which is very similar to what Git has, where when you create files, when you create a new branch, you create new files or modify new files, and then you commit them, and then you push them to the remote branch, and then you merge it with the main or the trunk branch. So we kind of have similar workflows, and multiple people can do these workflows, which is also something that is very different than what we used to have. Because with network provisioning, you can only have one task for one device, and that task will be updated forever and ever until it is executed, or until it is added to a change controller, then executed. With workspaces, you can have multiple workspaces and submit them, and then that creates a separate change control every time. So yeah, there's a lot of changes, and then the other main thing is that the old APIs only supported REST. The new one supports gRPC, so that kind of adds also to the scalability and performance. So these are a lot faster. Like we've been doing some tests at some point, and I remember we had a customer who had over 1,300 devices, and for them, using the old workflow, it was taking 50 minutes to run the playbooks. And with the new workflows with CV deploy, it was like less than 4 minutes. So I think that's quite a huge improvement in terms of speed.
Thanks, Tamas. And so you might not see actually all these performance improvements in my small lab, but definitely as bigger your scale, so the bigger benefit you will get from moving from the old role actually to the new role. And as we just discussed, so the advancement in CloudVision APIs is the main reason why we're discussing this new role right now, and why we want everyone to start, testing it and slowly moving towards CV deploy. So I'm not going to deploy to configure my devices using the legacy workflow, right? So I just wanted to show that it still works. If I would create change control and basically execute it, I would have this change delivered. But we want to be moving towards the future. So therefore, I just cancel all these tasks, so I don't need them at all. And I think I go back to my inventory. And what I'm going to do next, I'm going to start facelifting my small AVD repository to support CV deploy. This is actually very easy to do. I will create a playbook called something like AVD CV deploy. It's a very good name, very fancy. And this playbook will be super simple, right? So basically, this is all it takes to write a short CV deploy playbook for the on-prem case. Like, I have to mention that there will be a difference between CloudVision as a service and on-prem clusters. The one I'm showing here right now is focused on CloudVision as a service. And you can see that it's actually even more simple. Maybe if we, like split it like this way, so that you can actually start comparing two playbooks. Okay, what are the differences? Both of them have the name, right? So this has not changed. Just the name might be slightly different, but whatever. Then the host, like you can see the difference here. So because the old role was kind of targeted at CloudVision host itself, here we are simply putting, AVD fabric group. And if you go to your Ansible inventory, you can see that, well, this can basically go away. We don't need it anymore, right? So, and we only need AVD fabric, so it becomes way more straightforward. And underneath an AVD fabric, we have all our hosts, right? So, well, then actually we have very similar knobs, and basically then we have tasks, right? And tasks are, there is just one task in the new role, right? Yeah, there are like, it's even shorter. Basically, you mention the roles that you are going to be using, and this is CV deploy, and you need two variables. And these two variables you can actually put into your group variables somewhere here if you want to. Like if I go down, like you can see we have CV servers for the legacy role. For the new one, because we have very little variables to control it, I would actually kill this completely. So we don't need it, right? I would put this variable somewhere, maybe in all or like AVD fabric. It's up to you. But the easiest way, and probably this is like way easier to show, is if we put these two variables simply underneath, right? So, and the first variable is telling you to where you have to connect. And the second variable is telling you like which token you have to use. And talking about the tokens, this is like the token for the service account. If you go to settings on CloudVision and you go to service accounts, you can actually create normally like a new service account here.
One thing we should point out is that in EOS config deploy CVP, which really is the legacy role, that leverages that username and password auth combo, whereas CV deploy, really that's been replaced by this token authentication.
Well, on-prem, yes, but on CVAS,
Yes.
we always use the service accounts because there
Yep.
are no passwords on CVAS.
Yeah. So
Yep.
there is no
Yep.
so anyway, so we create a service account as network admin, right? And basically, you can go into this service account and you can generate a token here, like my test token. You can select the validity, like how long it will be valid. So normally you give it a bit longer, so I don't need it. Therefore, I just give it like a month or so. And I click generate, and here is the token that can be basically used to control CloudVision instance via API. And if you're still using accounts, actually consider switching to tokens. Tokens are way better than if you actually use accounts, right? So once we have this token, we have to relay that in some way to our AVD repository. And as you can see here, I'm simply using an environment variable, so which is called CV API token. And in there is my API token that I'm using for authentication. So, okay, now once I have all that in place and I actually generated my configs before, I probably need a make file. So because I could type like Ansible playbook and so on, but I don't want to do that. I just go to my old make file. I will copy paste the previous shortcut, right? So put my new shortcut here, which will be called, how we call it? CV deploy? I think that's fair. I don't need anything longer than that, right? And of course, it's
The YAML file as well.
CV deploy role. And here we will have AVD CV underscore deploy. Is that correct? I think so, right?
Looks good.
If I type CV deploy, theoretically, it should work. Okay, so now as you can see, the playbook was executed successfully. So remember, we were talking about the workspaces. You can see there was a workspace created, and then there was basically a change control with this workspace created just 37 seconds ago. And yeah, I think it wasn't actually executed. So now we just have to execute this change control. Yeah, you can see and review the changes. Basically, like we are configuring everything from the scratch, right? So therefore, I'm not going to review that. It's basically the configuration that was just generated by AVD. I review and approve and execute immediately. Like we are creating the workspace automatically and submitting it. And then there is a change control, which we actually then want to kick off, right? So, and I think this is basically the best way to do stuff for majority of the customers. However, you have a knobs that you can use to control this behavior. And namely, there are two variables that we can inject here underneath, which will be CVP run change control, which is false by default, right? And CVP submit workspace, which is actually false, which is true by default, right? So by default it would be true, but we can, change that a bit. First, we have to see that our lab was deployed. As you can see, it's successful. Once it's deployed, so we can go back to our repository and do some change, right? So let me first commit this one. I will be lazy. I just do like whatever commit.
Commit. It's
Yeah.
okay. Most of us just put a period, so
Yeah.
it's a
I
little bit
normally
better.
actually put like a dot, right? So this is what I'm going to do next, but I have to be a bit more creative. Don't do that on production repositories. You always have to put a meaningful commit message.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
doing this stuff and I'm always repeating, so because I don't want people to do that on production network. So, okay, so what we want to do, we want to do first of all a small change. I will go to my endpoints, for example, and yeah, I mean, actually, let me just remove these ports. So, as an example, right? So I will do make build, and we will see that there will be new config generated. Now, apparently, in this case, you can see that the config was deleted, right? So which is what we expect. So the next thing, we go to our CV deploy, and well, maybe we don't want to auto submit our workspace. So, and then we will see the full workflow with Studio, so how it's normally supposed to work. So with that, we can execute CV deploy playbook once again.
Okay.
And with that, we should see that there should be a workspace created for us. You can see it happened just like it's 1801, so it happened just a few seconds ago. So, and this is basically like what Tamas told before, right? So this is a workspace, right? So this is kind of, yeah, a branch, whatever, like a workspace where you create your changes. You can actually review them if you want, yeah. So, and you can see the change is impacting two devices. We are simply deleting the configuration. And when we are ready, we are just, so the workspace was auto-created for you. You don't have to do anything here. So you can just review this stuff. Normally, why it's not necessary, because we have an additional review step inside the change control. Yeah, so that's why I was telling that most of the people actually prefer to auto submit the workspaces. Yeah, we submit the workspace, and it creates a change control for us, and there is even a button, so which leads us directly to the change control, which is super convenient. Here you can review the change again. Yeah, so, and once you're happy, okay, it's again two devices, all good, you can review and approve it, right? Execute immediately, approve and execute. Another way, I think, while this thing is running, it will be ready in no time. We basically want to go and let's set all of them to true. So this will be true, and this will be true. In that case, when we make a change, the workspace will be auto-submitted, and the change control will be also auto-executed. Normally, if you are just starting with automation, you don't want to do something like that. But if you have like a matured automation workflow, you have some CI pipeline, and you have standard changes that you want to deliver immediately, so this is the way to go. Like, so for a matured automation workflow, you can auto execute certain things, right? We just have to create a change. Okay, let me submit that first with a dot. I mean, I'm promising to use dash next time. And then I go to my endpoints, and I will uncomment this stuff, generate new config. I will commit this config with a dash. as promised.
I
And
could
now,
just
as you can see,
imagine your teammates reading your commit messages and just being utterly confused of what
yeah,
is
of course,
going
yeah.
on.
That's the best commit messages ever. So we can actually start putting something else for the next changes. We have set that both to true, and if I run my playbook again, I expect this to be auto-executed. So let me actually go back. So I should get like another change control here in a few seconds. There's of course another workspace. You can see like we are seeing that in real time, yeah. And it's immediately started, so we are deploying the stuff straight ahead.
It's
So
pretty
that's
cool. It showed even that it started like a few milliseconds ago. Like
absolutely
it was really fast.
exactly. So and this is how you can actually control the execution of your workflows and everything with CV deploy. The other thing that I would probably like actually Tamas to show is how we can actually do the same stuff in case of on-prem environment. So because that will be slightly different.
I have a very similar playbook as Petr does, and I'm not going to use the makefiles this time because I'm a bit lazy now, but I definitely like using makefiles, and you should too. But I'm just going to talk a bit about the differences. There aren't many actually. Well, the main one is the IP address in this case. So in case of CVAS, you will need to use the regional URL that you are logged in on the UI, and so like different tenants would be in different regions. So Petr was using one of our development environments, but on production there are a bunch of regions that you can find on many of our documentations. It's on Help Center. It's on the AVD website as well. So make sure to use the correct regional URL. Like if you are on EU West 2, then you will have to use cvprod eu-west2.arista.io. If you are in the US, there are like 4-5 different regions there as well. We have a few in Asia Pac as well. So make sure you're using the correct one, otherwise you will get unauthorized or unauthenticated messages from your playbook runs. In case of CVP, you can either use the IP address. So, sorry, in case of on-prem, you can use either the IP or the FQDN of any of the nodes. So in this case, I'll use the primary node's IP address. Well, this is also single node, so it only has one IP. But in case of multi-node, you can use any of them. It doesn't really matter. They are all active. And then the same for the
I have
CV
to
token.
actually jump in here and tell that Tamas always actually tells everyone not to use single node. So
Yes,
do not use single node in production. So this is super important. This actually makes Tamas unhappy, even if he is using actually single node in his lab.
exactly. In production, definitely we don't support single nodes. It's just that you can't have high availability and redundancy with a single node. So if your disks get corrupted or you have infra issues, then your database is gone. And there's nothing we can do. And the other thing is that if you have a bunch of devices, I mean, more than what a single node would support, then you will have slowness as there's node load balancing across the free nodes. So um, always make sure to deploy multi-nodes in production, and you can always reach out to your friend neighborhood SE for help. All right, so back to CV deploy. But I would say this is the most major difference. Like isn't really anything else that you might have to take care of in this case. So let's try to do a playbook run and see how that works. All right, so I'm gonna make a change, and usually I like to add a new alias, which is very easy, just to trigger a new change. I already did one, so there's already a change control. I just want to also demo that you can have multiple change controls. So if I rerun the playbook, this shouldn't really take too much. Thankfully, the latency is not high. So there are some errors here because I've been also testing what would happen if I have devices that don't exist, and we take care of those quite well. So let's see, that should have given me another change control, which it actually did. You can see it has been edited 11 seconds ago. So this one was also not automatically approved, but we can do that, as Petr said as well. But let's talk a bit about CV Workflow, which is a action plugin within AVD, which is similar to CV Deploy, but you have a bit more knobs in setting stuff like the name of the change control or the name of the workspace. So if you don't like the default ones that we generate, then you can also configure these. So I have another playbook for that one, and it has a few things. And in case you're wondering why I haven't built the configuration first, I actually did that, but in my case, the playbook has those steps as well first. So it first builds the intended variables and the configuration, the documentation, and then it creates the workspace, does the changes, submits the workspace, and then creates the change control. So there are multiple ways. I like using set facts to set some variables, and then I use this kind of variable names. So if you look at the documentation, you will see that workspace and change control has a few variables that you can change. So you can modify the name, and for that I've used this other variable here in set fact, which let's set this to Tamas test, and let's see, August. Podcast test creative, and then the CC name I've chosen Tamas_test, and that will go here, and then the description CC Tamas description. So let's use this one, but obviously we have to make a new change. So add another alias.
So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on at what stage would you want to use the workflow setup versus CV deploy? Is it just the customization it provides, the naming?
I personally like to be able to understand what's going on in the change control by just looking at the title and the description. So if you're in production, it would help your managers a lot, especially if they are not into networking anymore and they just want to verify what you did. And obviously, if something failed, they can always check the diffs and stuff like that. But looking at the description title can give you a meaningful state of the change. And I suppose if you are using like ticketing systems, then you could also add your internal ticketing ID, so that you could correlate those maintenance windows with the change controls.
That's where my brain was going, thinking something like if you had a CI pipeline, in theory, you could also leverage the commit hash or even the short code of the commit hash to the workspace. So that would be really neat, right? You have commit hash, commit hash 18d6, and then on CloudVision you'd have 18d6. So okay, that could be pretty neat there.
Yeah, I think some people do that already with the CI pipelines.
Yeah, my suggestion would be actually for the majority of people who will be watching that, actually start small with CV deploy. So when you feel yourself comfortable and you need some additional features, start playing with CV workflow, and you will figure out if you need that or not.
Yeah, definitely keep it simple. Definitely keep it simple to start, for sure.
Yeah, and let's see. So 35 seconds. I mean, for me, even this one is actually a lot faster, because for me, the old EOS config deploy CVP role was taking around 2 to 3 minutes, and I have 6 devices. So 35 seconds for me is a godsend. And as you can see, yeah, this one also actually had the change control automatically approved and submitted. But I can see the description here and the name of the change. And if I go to the workspaces, I should be able to see the other naming convention that I have used and the description here. So it's very handy.
That's fantastic.
So thank you, Tamas. One other thing that I would like to show is a knob that is called CV settings. Because this is not directly related to CV deploy roles that we are discussing, but this is one of the recent advancement in AVD in general that is related to how we configure, CVP in our repos. And as you can see, basically there were multiple ways to do that in AVD before. The one I was personally using looks quite low level, yeah, and it's actually still valid and it's not going anywhere. So you can basically configure Terminator to stream to CloudVision directly by setting all the required knobs. But honestly, there is a better way to use US designs role and abstractions for that, and that's exactly like CV settings. Well, first of all, I have to kill this one, so because I don't need it anymore, right? So I can actually go away from it. And then I go somewhere to probably my fabric. I think this is where I would normally put it. It doesn't matter, I can actually put it also here, where it was before, so you can think about, properly structuring your inventory. But in my case, the inventory is quite simple and basically all has all devices underneath and AVD fabric has all devices underneath. Right now, I don't have a lot of info here, and I think it would be appropriate to put it, but sometimes I kind of think it's also that it's more topology related, and maybe CV settings is not necessarily, this is the right spot for CV settings. In this case, I will just put it here. So important that it will be applicable to all the hosts in my inventory. And then what I do, I will actually show you CVAS use case. So apparently this doesn't make a lot of sense, right? So just CVAS. This is just, again, we can use on-prem and we can use CVAS, right? So there are two kind of modes we can actually configure in CVAS settings. And probably CVAS actually gets the biggest benefit. So because, so first of all, we tell that it's enabled. So we want to stream to CVAS. And then we just tell, clusters. Sometimes it can be even shorter because for some knobs in there, we have default parameters. I have to specify that. So because I'm streaming to staging, and so therefore I have to specify that I'm streaming to staging. I will put a name. This is just pretty much arbitrary name for my CVAS cluster. Let's actually simply call it CVAS. So I think that's enough, right? And then the second knob I have to put is region, and this is what Tamas was telling about before. We have multiple regions, and often you have to put the correct URL. I mean, definitely, if you would go back to all, as you can see here, I have to put this URL to configure things properly. Yes, and I have to know this URL. I have to be sure that it's correct. This is not required with CV settings. You can just put region staging, and AVD knows instantly that we want actually to stream to staging, right? So this is our dev instance. If you have a production region, so basically you specify it there, right? And then the last thing is I basically have to put reference to token files. This is not changing. So here I have to do a bit of coding because my location is custom. It's basically in MNT Flash on every device. So yeah, well, basically this is the minimum required settings to start working with that. There was, however, one other knob I will show you here, so which is disable triple A. So disable triple A is used to avoid triggering authentication authorization towards your like TechX or Radius server. So when you are dealing with automation, and you can just simply use your service account and avoid actually like additional authentication steps altogether. I think Tamas may actually insert some commands. This is simplifying the workflow for majority of deployments, and I actually definitely like to use it in my lab. I don't know actually like Tamas can comment. So what do you see most in production?
Yeah, I would say most people use this at this stage. I mean, the biggest challenge is that without this one, if you are using a Radius server, Radius requires you to send an authentication request. But since we are always authenticated in case of Terminator, because it establishes the connection with CloudVision both on-prem and CVAS as well. We would only do authorization. I mean, we would only send authorization requests to the Radius or TACAC server, and Radius by default does not support this workflow. And since we don't use passwords either to log into CVAS, you need your provider, I mean your AAA server, to accept a sort of a proxy authentication. And then the other thing is that if you have your Radius or TACAC server somewhere far away, then it can take quite a lot of time to approve all the command requests if you have like a command per command authorization configured. So if you're sending like 20,000 lines in your configs, then that can take quite some time to be approved. And we already do anyways, authorize AAA on the CVAS side. So you need to be authenticated. Your user need to have the proper role to execute these changes. And there's also a possibility to configure a 4i principle, which is basically a non-author change control approval method. So if you are the author of a change control, you cannot be the one to approve it, which means someone else needs to look at your changes and approve it for you. But obviously, in case of automation, this can be also be done in the CI pipeline. And so, for instance, there are customers who are, when pushing the changes to the remote, to the upstream, someone needs to review those changes, and then when it gets approved, it triggers another playbook that would execute the change control, basically. So there are better ways of handling AAA rather than having EOS rely on it and send those commands to TACAX and Radius.
Yeah, and as I said, so like as Tamas, I'm actually of the same opinion. I think it's most actually best practice to have like these flags set in Terminator to keep things simple, keep things efficient, and I can absolutely confirm that command authorization is like an automation killer. So in production, so if you have to authorize every single command and your like AAA server is not performing well, I have seen many actually things breaking because of that. And surprisingly, it takes a long time to convince many people that actually this is the wrong way to build automation workflow. Because there is still a bit of a legacy mindset around in networking that command authorization is always kind of a good thing. No, it's not always a good thing. Sometimes you just don't need that. Keep things simple, straightforward. Tokens are the way to go. Yeah, so basically, as you can see, it looks nice and simple. So, well, a bit nicer than actually this one. So less actually details. And I have to simply build my configs and see the new configuration. And of course, you can see that I made an error, so which is probably good. So because I just have to figure out so where it is.
It's just that the D is missing in the key.
Thank you, useful
So
error messages.
Like, so automation is there for you. Like, you cannot do things in the wrong way. And if I do it actually once again, so now the config is generated, And basically you can actually check that it's nearly the same configuration. So, but it's a bit more abstraction, and this is, I would say, the new way of configuring Terminator to stream towards CVP for majority of AVD deployments now. Yeah. If you're doing it the old way and it's kind of not disturbing you, there is no pressing need to change that immediately, because this is still, what's happening under the knees. We just put this will be the same in the structured config, just, EOS designs is kind of generating this config for you. And now I can deploy it, right? So make CV deploy. And this config will be delivered to my CloudVision instance. I also committed. What actually we put now? Which commit message? I think it will be a star, right? So star. So, good. I think we covered nearly everything. One minor thing that I want to show really quick without digging a lot of details into details, because well, there are some things actually you have to fine tune in your production deployment, like talk to your SE. But what you can also control with CVP is basically tags, right? So if I go back to my, let's say, fabric settings, I just put it right here underneath. You can see there is a knob called generate CV tags, and you have like topology hints true, so which will set like topology tags for all your devices. There is a separate knob for campus because it's a bit different, but my network is not campus, therefore I simply disable it. And what I'm going to do next is I'm simply going to build the configuration first, because I have to generate these tags, right? So, and as you can see, if I highlight these YAMLs, you can see that I have the topology tags generated for me. And now I run actually CV deploy once again. And once this is executed, we can basically go to my inventory, and we can click on device tags, and you will see instantly that we actually have these tags defined in here. So this is like a small, nice add-on to the overall feature set we provide in AVD. And why these topology tags are important is because with these tags you can actually go to like your topology view, and then actually you will not see like a messy topology, but you will see something that you can actually understand and consume. Yeah. So, and AVD takes care of assigning these topology tags for you, so that you don't have to do this manually. With that, I think I will let Tamas and Julio to make final comments, and that's basically what we are planning to cover.
So definitely, please try to adopt CV deploy. It is the future. It's a lot faster. It's a lot more scalable. It has some very good knobs, and we've been actually using it for quite a while now. Like, has it been almost 2 years, Petr? I don't know. It's been
for quite a while.
time.
It still has its limitations, right? So so we are still developing actually certain features to have like feature parity, so between all the neural. But it's so much better, right? So actually start testing that right now to understand what kind of challenges you might hit. If you're hitting some challenges, let us know, right? So because right now it's time to start thinking about this neural.
Exactly. Yeah. If you have any feedback, we'd like to hear your thoughts on this.
No, thank you, Petr. Thank you, Tamas, on covering all things CV deploy. Looking forward to the next video. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Too. See you soon.
Yeah.